Welcome back to Real Rich Radio. I'm really excited to welcome Ben Wright of the Henhouse Prowlers on air today. How you doing, Ben?
Good, man. Thanks for having me, Daniel.
Hey, thanks for being here. And man, y'all have been really busy. I know the Henhouse Prowlers, known for traveling internationally, but you guys have taken that to another level in recent weeks. Just got back from Bolivia, about to head out to the Czech Republic as well.
That's right. Yeah, it's been exceptionally busy for us, and that's saying a lot because I feel like we're busy a lot. But this was cramming two international tours within a week of each other it's a new achievement.
I know that kind of being ambassadors for bluegrass music around the globe is one of your guys' missions as a band and one of your goals. What's that experience been like taking bluegrass music to so many different countries and cultures, and what's that response been like in your guys' history?
And it's been one of the most rewarding things that we just accidentally fell into. It feels like, about 15 years ago, we learned about how the State Department uses music as a tool to bridge people and cultures. And we showed some interest. We applied for this program and we got it. And they sent us to West Africa. And that tour just was this wake up call for us. Like, this fits us so naturally and it's something we love to do. And so we've really worked hard to make sure it keeps happening. And the tour to Bolivia that just happened is, an extension of that. We keep getting invited to do these tours because I think because it's something we love doing and we've really leaned into it. And so it's incredible. I mean, Bolivia, we were, I think, the first bluegrass band to been brought to Bolivia, certainly by the State Department, but I know we were some of the first banjos and mandolins played in that style there for sure. And it was incredible. But, these days, YouTube and the internet means that everybody all over the world has access to everything. And we played with a fiddle player in La Paz who just nailed everything. And, he was Bolivian born, but he studied our music and got up. And weirdly enough, that night in La Paz, I got ill. Like, first time in my career, so ill I couldn't play. And I walked off the stage and he jumped up in my place and took over for the rest of the show. And it was just the coolest thing ever. So it is always extremely rewarding and a huge thing part of what we do for sure.
Chatting with Ben Wright of the Henhouse Prowlers. Ben, you guys have a great new single released to celebrate our veterans, and it's kind of a different take on a song saluting our servicemen and women. And it's one that's very personal to you. Why don't you tell us the story behind Line the Avenues that was just recently released?
Yeah, so my grandfather was a B-25 pilot in World War II, and when I was a very young man, around the age of 10, he told me we were visiting them in West Bend, Wisconsin, and he said, "Hey, tomorrow morning I'm going to get you up early, and I want to share some things with you." And as a 10-year-old, like I didn't know what that meant. I remember being like, "Cool, my grandfather wants to hang out with me." So sure enough, he woke me up and we went and had breakfast at the kitchen table and he pulled out these photo albums that he had put together after the war. He brought a camera with him and took pictures of his experience in North Africa in particular. He was in several different fronts, but that was where he spent most of his time. He was in the 12th Bombardment Group, a pilot of a B-25 that was called Sad Music. That was the name of his plane. And
How appropriate to have a grandson that would go on to be a banjo player then. So.
yeah, right. And he sat me down for an hour and took me through those photo albums and talked to me about each picture and shared with me his experience in a way that I'm realizing isn't entirely common. A lot of people come back from war and don't share because it's traumatizing and pretty terrible stuff that happened. And so I'm realizing now, just as we're releasing this song, even more so how fortunate I was that I was able to be there for that. And he clearly knew his time was limited. He died just a few years later. And that's moving too, to think that he was like, I need to share this with the younger generation. And he chose me to do that with, was crazy powerful. And now I have those books And so I've been able to use them as a inspiration for this song, and that's what happened. Like I sat down to write this tune. I've always wanted to, but I was always afraid to. It's like so personal and something I so badly didn't want to screw up, you know. And so it actually it came relatively quickly over the course of a week or two. And I really just kept referring back to the book because one of the coolest things was that he wrote these little descriptions of the photos underneath them. So I don't entirely remember what he told me when I was 10, but I have these amazing one sentence descriptions of each photo. Some of them are really funny and some of them are really smart. Like he was, and some of them are devastatingly sad, like photos of his friends after their planes crashed and just day-to-day life that was a bunch of men in World War II trying to get by, and most of them from tiny towns in America. And here they were in Egypt and Tunisia, like this crazy, wildly different part of the world that a small town Indiana boy should not realistically would never come across. Yet here he was at the pyramids with camels,
Yeah.
So it was a wild thing to be able to write a song about. And the song really took on a life of its own and kind of told me what it needed to be written about. It was an interesting experience.
You mentioned your grandfather was in a small town in Indiana. What town in Indiana?
Richmond, Indiana.
Oh, okay, that's right in our broadcast area. We have
Oh,
yeah, we have a network of radio stations that cover southwestern Ohio, northern Kentucky, and eastern Indiana. Our WEDI station covers Richmond, Indiana heavily. We have a lot of listeners from there. I had seen where you had said that he was from a town in Indiana that wasn't too far from where the Wright brothers bicycle shop was in Dayton. So I was curious if it was where in eastern Indiana it was, but I know we have a lot of people in Richmond tuned in today. So,
well, that's cool. We the Henhouse Prowlers played Performing Arts Center in Richmond that's attached to the high school just last year. And my grandfather was a guidance counselor there, and the guidance counselor room is named after him, and it's got a little
wow.
plaque that probably nobody notices anymore. But for me, it was really moving to go and play there and like, I don't know, just be around where he was after the war too.
uh, One thing that's so unique about this song is not only is it about your grandfather, but it's also broader than that, telling a story that is applicable to so many men and women from small towns like Richmond, Indiana, that rose to a cause that was bigger than themselves, but oftentimes share the same struggles when they return home from war with the song line, The Avenues. Well, how is Line the Avenues different than a lot of Veterans Day songs that folks may hear from other artists?
Yeah, well, that's a tough question to answer. The first verse is absolutely about my grandfather. It is me imagining him waking up in the North African desert and being scared out of his mind, even though he may not have been able to share that. I mean, I remember him telling me that yes, my job was to be the pilot and the captain of this plane and inspire my men, but every day was you just didn't you knew you might not come back. And he remembered leaving with 12 planes in their formation and coming back with three, and what that meant to him. And I finished that verse and I was really proud of it because I felt like it really echoed that. But I was like looking through, I went back to the photo album and I was looking through it again and I was like, man, these photos don't they could be taken in any desert. And I was like, man, only a few thousand miles away to the east uh was the Gulf Desert, what was the Iraqi desert. And I was like, how different was his experience from those people in the Gulf War, a war I remember, and a war that isn't as glorified as World War II is. And that's where immediately the second verse popped in my head, and I imagined a woman flying, injured soldiers in a helicopter, and not knowing who they were, but knowing that they were never going to be the same. And how, she too was from a small town. And I don't know, like I said, the song kind of wrote itself, and that how he thought about enlisting in 41 and she thinks about enlisting in 91, and how 50 years later these two soldiers are having the same experience, even though the weapons are different, the war is the same. And I know that recruitment of war, I'm not, obviously I have a ton of respect for the soldiers, and I recognize the world's a complicated place, and war at various different points in history has happened and has been necessary. And so I'm not trying to take a political stance on this song, but there's no question that when people enlist in the Army or in the Air Force or the Navy, they don't know what they're in for. And so they're being told, like, hey, be all you can be a hero. And at the end of it, it's not clear to me if it's worth it. And that's being said too with the acknowledgement that both they both fought, my grandfather and this fictional woman that fought for my freedom.
Yeah.
It's just it. I think the song. Hopefully the song allows you to reckon with that stuff personally. And at the end of the song, I say, like, I see things different now. Like at least when I read about the war and how whatever war is currently going on and how it shakes out, I try to think about the individuals who fought those battles. Because one of the things my grandfather did was he pointed at the people in those photographs and told me things about. I mean, he's like, that guy. He was really funny, and that guy he kept to himself, and I think that's the things that are lost when you look at a war is the individuals that are lost in them. And I think that's the gift he gave me, was to try to recognize those people and remember them for who they were instead of the war they fought in.
That's a great point because one thing that's powerful about the song is it's universal, but it's also specific by having stories of specific people like your grandfather, World War II, this composite character in the Gulf War. It makes it universal, but we all know specific people who have had similar experiences. Myself, I can think of people I've talked to that fought in World War II or Korea or Vietnam or fought in Operation Iraqi Freedom. And so
Mhm.
many of those emotions and so much of the way they talked about what they experienced is universal to each of their own specific experiences. You did a great job capturing that in this song. And I'm glad that you brought up that um, those experiences will be similar for all of them, regardless of the war that they fought in. You
Mhm.
mentioned, World War II. Uh, it was an absolutely massive chapter in American history, especially in the 20th century. But something like the Gulf War, where there's not as many movies about the Gulf War or books or specials on the History Channel, but those soldiers had that same experience, just like those from Vietnam and Korea. Those scars are still similar amongst all those generations. You did a great job capturing that in Line the Avenues, available now from the Henhouse Prowlers.
Thank you so much. We've been playing this song live a little bit, and I had a guy come up to me at the Bluegrass Island Festival right after we played, and he said, "Did you say 91 in that song?" And I said, "Yeah, the second verse is about a Gulf War vet." And he just like grabbed my hand and said, "Thank you." And like it just immediately made me recognize like how uncelebrated Gulf War veterans are. And it was moving for me, like to have this guy grab my hand and thank me just for mentioning the war. It's like it felt pretty good.
Well, it's a powerful song, and I'm glad that it's touching the lives of folks that are hearing it and maybe causing them to reflect on if they're veterans, their own experiences, or if they're civilians like you and I, to think a little harder about some of the things that those veterans sacrificed so we can live in this blessed, free nation, the United States of America. Ben, where can folks go to learn more about the Henhouse Prowlers, hear the new song, and keep up with when you guys are going to be back in the States since you're about to head overseas again?
Yeah, so I mean, henhouseprowlers.com is the place where you can find all of our tour dates and stuff. That Line the Avenues is now on all streaming services. So if you're Spotify, Amazon, whatever, you can find it really easy. It's on the top of all those pages right now. And all our social media is also Henhouse Prowlers. I locked all those in immediately when they started. So we're back we're heading to the Czech Republic today. I'm actually leaving in an hour. And we're doing something really cool there that I'll speak very briefly on. A lot of your listeners may know this, but not very many Americans understand the connection between Czech and Slovak people and American people, and that is bluegrass music, bluegrass and
Absolutely.
country. There's this fascinating history there of before World War I or World War II, there was this scene called tramping where people really loved being outside and pairing music with that. And then when World War II hit, the Czechoslovakia was under a communist dictatorship that really limited their freedoms. And American soldiers in Germany put up radio towers at the end of the war to broadcast American Armed Forces radio network to the American soldiers that were there. And the Czech and Slovak people picked up those broadcasts. And that's why now you and I know that Pruka and Chopek instruments are some of the best bluegrass instruments out there. And there's, if you ever play in the Czech Republic, you will be in a jam session with someone who knows more Jimmy Martin songs than you do. And it's this beautiful thing that connects our cultures that not enough people know about. So we're going over there to make a film about it and learn more about it and kind of absorb it and bring it back home with us. So it's something I'm really excited about.
That's fantastic. You mentioned that Czech connection. I'll never forget the year that Lily Pavlak received a Distinguished Achievement Award from the International Bluegrass Music Association for being a key link in that chain on bluegrass traditions, gaining attraction, getting a foothold in the Czech Republic. And that whole chapter of bluegrass history is so fascinating. So that's exciting. Good luck on the film. That sounds wonderful.
Thanks, man. And we're on Dark Shadow recording record label, and Jana Mojin is Slovak, and she had an amazing band that toured the U.S. So it's all, if you're a nerd, it's something you can find out about. But it's a pleasure to play for American audiences and tell them that, and hear people recognize that for the first time. And so that's something we're working hard on. So
hey, IBMA stands for International Bluegrass Music Association. Glad you
that's
guys
right.
are helping emphasize that as you guys are traveling the globe, teaching folks abroad and at home about bluegrass music and its histories and its roots and its branches. So you guys are doing great work. Keep it up.
Thank you, Daniel. It's been good chatting with you, man.